Welcome back to my channel. This is Lonnie from You're Doing What, a channel designed to help those of us who are in our later decades enjoy life on the road in an RV. And my husband and I are full-timing in this RV. So it's a plunge that we took about 2 months ago, and so far so good. Now, one question that we got quite a bit before we left our home of 12 years in Florida was where are you going to get doctors, and how are you going to know which doctors to go to, and what if there's an emergency, what if you need something from a physician. So that's what I'm going to talk with you today about. A couple of experiences that we've already had that worked out just fine. So before we left, my husband had to have a pacemaker, and we had moved out of our house and into the RV, but we were still in Florida. So we were able to access our primary care physician and his group for care during that period of time in the hospital, and it worked out fine. He was in the hospital for 10 days, so I was in the RV alone, but that was fine. I wasn't that far from the hospital, and I felt really safe. So once we left, then we have a monitor for that pacemaker that's on a wireless system that sends reports to the doctors in Florida. And if there's an issue, we get an email or a text if something's wrong. In addition, one of my very good friends gave Craig a pulse oximeter, which he can read if he puts it on his finger, and he can read his oxygenation level in his blood just from that pulse oximeter. He can read his heart rate, and he can see if he's in AFib. So those three things help us do a lot of self-monitoring. The other thing we do is we have a blood pressure cup that we carry in the RV, and Craig takes his blood pressure every day, every morning and every evening, and so far we're doing okay. Now, there was a little issue with his medication having the right dosage, but we got that worked out through consultation with his primary care physician and neurologist. Now, while we were traveling, we decided that maybe we should go check into an emergency room just to be sure his medications were doing what they're supposed to do, and get a blood test. And we went to the emergency room because we knew we'd have to see a cardiologist. So we're more likely to be able to get a cardiologist from the emergency room than from an urgent care clinic when we're on the road. I called the emergency room in a smaller community in New Mexico, not a larger community, but a smaller community that's about 100 miles from Albuquerque, which has a medical teaching hospital. And we decided not to go there because those emergency rooms are really crowded sometimes, and you just don't get the attention that maybe you want. So in this smaller town, when I called ahead of time, the nurse who was on the floor said that it was no problem if there was not a cardiologist at their hospital full time, that they consulted with the University of New Mexico Med Center cardiologists on all of their cases that required either neurology or cardiology to take a look at x-rays or CT scans, anything like that. And they did it almost instantaneously because it was all electronic. So that made me feel a lot better. So when we got to the emergency room, sure enough, it was a small facility. We got right in. There were 3 or 4 nurses on call or on duty, and 2 physicians on duty. One was about to end his shift, but he stayed around for a little while to be sure the second physician was up to speed on what was going on with Craig. And he had a CT scan, had all the blood work done that we needed to get done for his medication dosages, and it looked like everything was fine. And the CT scan and X-ray got sent to UNM, and they had an answer back from UNM within 15 minutes. I was really impressed. So that's our current situation. We don't worry about our medical care. You can find emergency rooms and urgent care almost any place. And really, there are good doctors everywhere, and we carry our medical records with us so that we can take them in with us and let the physician who's on call take a look. And we also ask lots of questions, so we tend to not get ignored or shoved aside. We are pretty assertive in our questioning and wanting to know what's going on. So our meds, we have a mail order service through our health insurance, and we also use Walgreens and Walmart for some things, because Walgreens and Walmart are all over the country, and you can transfer your prescriptions from one location to another location really easily online. So that's what our current setup is for doing that. And we've already refilled 2 prescriptions for me and 1 for my husband, and it worked seamlessly. It really worked very well. So we haven't had to worry about getting short on medications. The final thing is that I know how to drive, of course, the RV, and if there were an emergency, we would just call 911 and drive toward the nearest town, I guess I would say, the nearest town, or wherever the ambulance is coming from. Okay, if you thought that this was helpful or useful, and you'd like to subscribe, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button that's right down below. And if you like the video, hit the like button, and I would really appreciate that, and would have a lot of gratitude for that if you would do that. I look forward to our next encounter together, and I hope that you're having a fabulous day. Adios.